Hello and welcome to episode 150. I have been doing this now for over 4 years. It has been a delight. I have been talking with some of the most incredible people on this planet. I hope to continue doing it. And I am really grateful that you are dropping by my little corner of the world where I talk with artists, leaders, creators, people of all stripes. And today is no different for episode 150. I speak with the band Final Gravity. They are an LA based band. They do some incredible music. Think it's kind of prog, edgy music, and kind of has this Geddy Lee Rush vibe to it on some of the tracks. They have a great new project out now called Stormchaser. Get it wherever you get music, but mostly try to get it from Bandcamp. And we talk about that within this episode as well. Great band. They have this lovely lead singer. She's just awesome. And everybody is so wonderful in here. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Final Gravity, for speaking with me. It's a lot of fun, and I hope to see you on the other side of this lovely interview. Thank you. Good to hear you. I could
Cool.
see you as well now.
Great.
Excellent. And we have another guest here. This is a surprise. I didn't know if I was going to get
Okay.
to. Thank you so much for joining me, Melissa.
I think you
How you
might be
doing?
getting three or four depending on people's
Oh,
availability.
wow.
So we're trying for the whole band. We'll see.
Oh, okay. That sounds fantastic. I'm glad you could join me. And how are things going for you? You're all on Pacific time this morning?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all in the LA area.
Excellent. How is it going out there? As we record this, the fires are still going, and I know it's affecting a lot out there. This is just totally unprecedented.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
live I live right near the Pacific Palisades. I'm in Santa Monica. So last week actually the closest evacuation zone was only about 3 blocks away from my place. So looking a little dicey for a while. So thankfully we're okay. But yeah, I mean most people have lost their homes, a lot of people disrupted by it, so it's pretty terrible overall.
Yeah, it always depends on which way those winds blow, and you just hope against all hope that
Yeah.
they would just die down for Christ. I mean, for gosh, I mean,
Yeah,
you really wish it would be over with.
definitely.
That's the one thing with Mother Nature, though. You know, we kind of experience the aftermath of hurricanes around here. Now we're getting snowstorms here in January 2025, which is very
Mhm.
unusual for us in the Southeast. At least it's, there's a point where it's over. And this kind of thing, it's just this continuing nightmare. So I feel for
Yeah,
everybody out there. It's just your worst nightmare.
yeah. No, thank you.
Absolutely. So if you'd like to get started, that would be fine. I could admit somebody else in here. John is joining us
Okay, cool.
as I let them in there, and we'll see John come up here in a minute. And you could just tell all of us what role you play in the band and how this all came about. I really think this is interesting because I'm looking at the website, and you got just like these really cool covers to your album projects here. And just how does that get chosen? Is that a democratic process in the band?
Melissa, you want to answer that one or start the
Yeah,
answer?
anybody can jump in anytime you want.
Um, Everything gets decided over a beer, usually. Is that
That's
right,
good.
Mike?
Beer and or other
Other,
spirits. Yeah.
but other spirits. But no, yeah, it's definitely everyone has an input, and it usually just evolves organically and naturally, like is the way it has always seemed to be, where it's like we'll sort of be saying, okay, this is the idea, and so like the other album prior to this one, Surviving Humanity, where we've got the icebergs, we had a guy Eric, what's his last name?
Eric Senna.
Yeah, Eric Senna, sorry. And he's a really great artist, and we told him what our concept for the album was, and he came to us with like four different things, and we sat over some beers and looked through this with him, and it was pretty unanimous, but we all kind of put our votes in, and that's how that one started to evolve into being that one. Um, with Stormchaser, similar where Charles actually headed this quite a bit with a lot of good ideas, but again, like presenting different ideas, and then we all kind of like put our votes in and just kind of naturally coming to this agreement that, yeah, that feels right. So it was always going with that gut instinct, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's just beautiful. I love that photography and the struggle on the iceberg. It's like little tug of war.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's going in there, surviving it is just really symbolic. Just a beautiful photograph, and obviously probably enhanced with Photoshop, but it's just absolutely beautiful. It's really, really
Yeah,
nice. But
I love
you're,
it.
yeah.
I was so impressed when I saw it. It was kind of like, absolutely, that's what it has to be.
So you have an exciting new project, Stormchaser, which is just a really nice collection of tracks here. How did this come about, Stormchaser? What was the original idea for it?
There's a lot going on. We started working on some of this material way back during the pandemic. I think in LA we've even got the fires going on right now. I think in LA there's always a little bit of chaos, and I think as a band we're always trying to look for the positives and survive them. We're never like a downer band. We never try to look at the dark, depressing end of things. We always try to look for the standing up and rising against and overcoming. So I think a little bit of the artwork that Charles put together for the album cover and the name, I think we were just trying to say that, we're ready to take things head on and we're gonna, nothing's gonna get in our way. And we're actually not just sitting back, along for the ride, but we really want to kind of, grab the, take the lead.
Yeah. And as a band, it sounds like it's pretty a democratic process that you're all really unequal. It's so much different than a solo act where you got the band supporting the solo artist, and that's a whole different dynamic. So it sounds like it's all equal parts as far as a project like this comes together.
We all share, yeah. I think everything from the songwriting to deciding which gigs we're going to play to uh, anything it's usually a pretty democratic, like you said, democratic process. And everybody contributes too. I mean, everybody has special skills too that anybody can kind of contribute in. I actually work in the world of audio as an audio engineer. Charles works as a video editor. Mike does a lot with internet-based products. Melissa's really good with marketing. So I'd like to think that each of us have some special, unique talents we could bring to the table. But even that, we always run all of our ideas past each other. No one ever just sort of says, "This is my thing, and I'm doing it my way." If I'm in charge of this. But we all say, "Hey, we present an idea. Hey, this is where I'm running with this. What do you think?" And everybody always provides feedback, and we welcome it. No one's very defensive about it. We all we want to make things as good as we can and make things better and better. So.
So what's your role in the band? And then if anybody wants to jump in there as to who plays what, Melissa's obviously the lead singer here, and just describe your role in the band as to what you do and instruments you play.
Go, Charles.
Uh, is my mic on? Just want to
Yeah,
make sure.
looking
Okay.
good. I like the background.
All right. Well, I'm the bass player, obviously. I write a little bit on guitar, a little bit on keyboards, but primarily if I bring an idea to the band, it's on bass. I'll have ideas like, "Hey, Mike, could you play something like this?" Or, "John, I'm thinking a drum thing like this." Or, "Melissa, maybe the vocal melody goes like this." But it's completely collaborative. It's like that's just a starting point or a jumping off point. And I think everybody has sort of that same collaborative effort when they bring something into the band, or collaborative spirit, I mean. It's just like, "Hey, here's something to start on. What can we make out of it?" So it's not really, as you mentioned, Robert. Is it Robert or Bob?
You can call me Bob.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah,
It's
my
definitely
Zoom has
not.
my formal name there.
Call me pal.
It's
Never mind.
definitely
Call
not
me out.
us. It's not a solo project. It's not a vanity project for any one person. I mean, we're very much collaborative. Additionally, as John mentioned, my career is in post-production. I'm an assistant editor at the moment. I've edited almost all of our music videos that you see on YouTube. My girlfriend shoots a lot of video for us that I edit. And also, I did the artwork for Stormchaser. The front cover, back cover, the layout, everything except the photo of the band on the interior. Do you have all the artwork, Bob?
I
Did you
just
get?
have the covers here. I don't have like the inside artwork.
Oh, bummer. Well, I'll send you that at some point. hopefully during
Yeah.
this interview. In fact, if you guys will let me pull back for a moment, I'll see if I can send it over.
Yeah, and I'm a video editor too by trade in the
Oh,
daytime, so I totally understand that. What not to talk too much shop here, but what system do you edit on?
well, I'm a Windows guy at home. I'm a Mac guy at work.
Yeah,
At home, I go back and forth between Avid and Premiere depending on
yeah.
how I feel that project. At work, it's Premiere right now. It's been Avid before. Final Cut way back in the day before they nerfed it. So
Hmm.
a little bit
Yeah,
of
Final
everything.
Cut Pro, yeah. It really it became a more consumer product. It used to
Yeah,
be good way
yeah,
back in the day.
yeah. I
Yeah.
also touch on Resolve a little bit, but mainly for color and transcoding.
Yep, that sounds good. You're heavily into it, and there's a lot that can go into it. But yeah, you go down this whole rabbit hole. I do Premiere and After Effects, and it's totally endless. But that's the video part. But yeah, nice videos on YouTube that you have.
Thanks. Okay, I'm going to pop out for a minute and find those files and send them over.
Yeah, and whoever else, if Melissa, if you'd like to tell us how you got into the band, how that all came about, and it's a pretty unique story how you became the lead singer of this band.
Yeah. It's
Very,
funny. So the very very beginnings of it, I what I found out later, I didn't even know this like initially, was that Zero Gravity opened for my all-female Led Zeppelin tribute band at this place called Weber's in, where is it? West Hollywood somewhere, right? And
Rosita.
Reseda. Oh, was it? Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not there anymore. Anyways, John had a solo project that he was working on, and he thought, oh, she'd be really good to sing on my solo project, and actually sent a package out to that venue with a proposal saying like, hey, I think you're a really good singer. You should sing on my solo album thing, and I could give you studio time because John has a few really beautiful studios where he does recording, and I thought, oh, that sounds great, and so I did. I recorded. It was called Fire. What was it
Wildfire.
called, John?
Yeah, Wildfire.
Wildfire. I recorded
Interesting.
Wildfire, and so then I did that, and then the return favor ended up being that I was in another band, a metal band called Sin, and I needed a drummer because our drummer had basically, you know, taken on a new career and he just wasn't going to be available. And I said to John, well, you play drums. Do you want to like fill in for my band Sin? It's like, okay. And he did that and it went really well. And we hit it off like that. And so then obviously John had his own band, Final Gravity, but I didn't really hear too much about them until I left the country and I went to Australia for like a few months. I was there for like a couple months actually, and they contact me and say, "Oh, hey, or John contacts me and says, "Hey, I have this gig opening for Fate's Warning, and our singer did the same thing that the drummer of Sin did, where he's like a new career and he's like, I'm going across the country and not going to be around anymore. Would you be able to learn our whole album in about a week and do this show?" And I said, possibly. The only dilemma is I'm in another country right now, and I'll probably be in the US 3 days before this said show. And but I kind of jumped in, and I'm like, sure, you know what? Let's do it. And it was a big hit. It was so fun. It was so great. I loved the songs. I learned in a week, but I loved learning them in a week. And we did it, and we got a really good response from everyone, and had just a blast. And after that, basically, John and I were like, "Hey, would you like to be the permanent musician of my band?" And it's like, sure. And would you like to be the permanent musician of my band? It's like, sure. And so we kind of like made this kind of you know, alliance that we were gonna like bolster each other in the music.
Yeah,
That's the story. And the rest is history, I guess.
well, and your background's interesting. You got the opera training, which I think does get you for the type of music this melange of sounds that you have is just perfect, and it
Yeah.
kind of has this Geddy
What's
Lee vibe to it. It's really interesting.
Well, what's interesting is that so I did opera really young. I did like opera scholarship when I was like in high school, and I actually learned all my singing because, and I got into gospel and I got into all these other forms of singing because of doing opera, and because I wanted to be able to expand beyond that and have like more moldability and capability of being able to do anything and everything. And so the opera did help, but it's funny. It kind of helped in a funny way where it pushed me into these other dimensions of singing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. It's a perfect fit. So you're coming together, putting an album like this together. How do the songs get constructed? Are you doing a lot of the lyric writing? I know that's very tough to just do lyrics and to put melody to it. How are these tracks coming together as far as like when you start and you germinate the idea for each track?
It's a combined forces thing. Mike did the lyrics for Planet Earth, and then I put my kind of feel and vibe to it, but that was sort of the his construction. But then songs like Story of Forever was one where the guys actually wrote it to be an instrumental song, and I heard it and I could hear these pockets in within the song that I like, and just the way I wrote the lyrics and the melody for that, and it just kind of flowed. It was something I couldn't help but hear, and I presented it, and because originally they were very solid that was a mental song, and I think it's one of the best songs. And so it just depends, right? And so you go with, again, it's always that gut feeling and feeling it out. But Mike does a lot of lyrics, and Charles contributes too. He gave me, um, little suggestions for the D that I took on. Um, but yeah, again, it's like always collaborative, and I think that's what makes a real band.
Yeah, it seems like
Yeah,
with
I
the
mean, to
yeah. Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry to
No,
jump in. Yeah, I
that's
mentioned the
fine.
song Planet Earth earlier, which is kind of what kicked off this EP. So Planet Earth was a song that I wrote probably back in the late '90s, and it was really about kind of environmental issues and this sort of story of we screw up the Earth so bad that we basically have to leave the planet to find another home to colonize and eventually come back. And really interesting because the movie Interstellar just had its 10th anniversary, and I took my son to see it at the
Oh,
Chinese theater in IMAX out here. And it's like, I'm not saying that they stole the idea from me, but they're no, but seriously, that and the movie Wall-E both had similar themes. And when I wrote it at the time, it was
Soylent
like,
Green.
hearing these warnings of someday in the future there may be a thing like this, and more we're starting to see these things playing out. Where these fires here in LA, it's like, and we have two entire regions of Los Angeles that are mostly gone. Pacific
wow.
Palisades and Altadena. And so it's like kind of scary that we just put the song out, and it's like a lot of the like warnings leading up to its story are kind of ending up sort of coming true. So kind of back to my main point, it's like that sort of kicked it off, and that was a song that I did write. But John had the idea, like, well, let's get together and do like this 1 day session down at his studio. We had an engineer, Chris Henry, come in and kind of engineer and produce the sessions that day, and we got a really good outcome. And so even though it was sort of my song, I think starting with that session, it really kind of was a collaborative effort of arranging it, recording it 1 day. And that's also what led us to work with Rich Mauser, our producer, because we had to mix it because he was on our radar. We took the song to him. We actually sat there with him during the mix session and did a fantastic job on it. So we're like, yeah, I think this might be the guy to produce the other songs on the EP.
Yeah, Rich also worked for with Tears for Fears. And I'm not sure which project that he worked with Tears for Fears on, but yeah, that name does ring a bell. So, I mean,
Disc,
Yeah.
I looked it up on Discogs, and it had something to do with some bonus tracks on their greatest hits album. But I don't really. I forgot to ask him.
Well,
yeah,
Charles, you know some of his discography. What are some of the other projects that Rich has worked on? Because there's a
Oh,
lot of
geez.
bands in our genre and sort of that like
Yeah.
prog rockish kind of vein. Yeah.
Let's see. Neil Morse Band, Transatlantic,
Transatlantic.
Lobate Scarp, we know those guys personally. Uh,
I know he's worked with like Mike Portnoy from like Dream
Oh
Theater.
yeah, lots of times. He was a
Rotation
member.
Experiment.
I'm pretty sure he was a member of that band Oleander back in the
Yeah,
90s. He
he
was a
was.
guitarist and songwriter, engineer, producer guy for them. So he's been around the block a long time, but he seems to be doing mainly progressive rock albums these days. I'm not sure if that's, I mean, he's clearly got an interest in the genre and he's good at it. I don't know if that was when he got into music where he saw himself going, but he's definitely taken that ball and run with it. So he's, you know, he's a great guy, and it just kills me that his studio is gone. And his studio was also his house. It's like he had a big 2-story drum room, mixing, kitchen, all this stuff downstairs for the band, but he had his own private second story, you know, bedroom and suite and everything up there where he and his wife lived. And the whole thing's burned down. So not only is his studio gone and all the awesome vintage gear he had, but his house is gone too. So, I mean, geez, I feel bad. We shared some links to his Kickstarter, so maybe we
Well,
can.
I guess we feel very fortunate that, you know, we had that opportunity to kind of at least create our project in that studio before. Again, it just recently got lost in the fires, but you know, it was an awesome place. And what was so cool about that is we got to make a record old school style. We went to him with demo tracks, said, Here's the demos." He went through the demos. Even one of them he didn't particularly like. He goes, "Hey, you know, these are all feeling a little middle of the road here. You got something more upbeat." You know, we pulled a different file up, and he's like, "Yeah, let's go with something more like that. I think that's got more energy," which actually turns out to be our opening track on the record. And then from there, you know, we actually developed the songs a little bit more, went to his studio to do all the recording, did all the mixing, did all the mastering. And he doesn't just do everything in the box. You know, he had a great big, you know, vintage Harrison console and real outboard gear for reverbs and compressors and a real plate reverb, and he actually printed the mixes to reel tape. So I mean, this wasn't even just a do a record the way they're done nowadays and do it on the low budget easy way. I mean, we had an opportunity to kind of work with a phenomenal engineer, producer, mixer, and work in the studio, kind of what I think of as like the old school days. And I think what's kind of great for a band like us, it really translates into more like what I call like an analog sound. You know, I mean, you know, a lot of the bands that we kind of pull a lot of our um, um, the bands we grew up in, you know, we liked that sort of, you know, sound where they sound like real instruments. It doesn't sound like samples or everything's over processed or auto tuned or digitized and edited to death and quantized. So, you know, we wanted to, I mean, I think Rich brought out the best of our musicianship, but, you know, I guess we wanted to sound like, you know, musicians were a band.
Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned it, but yeah, Rich's house was actually up in the hills of Altadena. So we had up there probably like 15 times between pre-production and recording sessions. So yeah, it was tragic because he had a beautiful location, beautiful house, incredible studio, and we spent a lot of time up there. So when seeing the fires happen, for several days, we're like, God, we hope Rich's place is okay, and unfortunately it wasn't. But we were driving by that entire neighborhood just multiple times, and even the photo of us in the bar on the artwork on our album was actually taken at the Altadena Wine and Ale House, which is right down the hill from Rich, maybe about 3/4 of a mile, and that was sort of our home away from home while we were out there. So yeah, hit us pretty hard, everything going on there.
Yeah, I got that photo. That's really, really nice. Yeah, it
Yeah,
looked
everything
really good
that
there.
revolves around
Yeah.
beer.
All right, I'm just sending Bob some photos of us at the studio.
Yeah. Oh, that's just tragic. And to hear about a reel to reel, I mean, I love that vintage equipment. It's just like there's nothing like that. They don't make that
Yeah.
like that
It was pretty
anymore.
special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you could tell that in the final mix with a lot of these songs. The deep is just, really beautiful and really just edgy with just very just like total energy. It's just great thing to work out to as well. It's got a lot to it.
Yeah, several of us in the band are like huge Rush fans.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, we didn't set out to imitate Rush at all, but I
Yeah.
think it just gets into your DNA.
Sure.
But that song, "The Deep," reminds me of an older Rush song called Mike, help me out. First song, "Caress of Steel," Bastille
Yeah,
Day.
Bastille Day.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a vibe from Bastille Day, just a little bit. And Rich was listening to the demo. He's like, "You're going for like an early Rush vibe on this." And I'm like, "Oh, this guy gets us." We weren't really going for it, but he pointed it out. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that is really similar, isn't it?" Not to the point of being a ripoff or an imitation. You remember all those bands back in the '80s that were doing Led Zeppelin ripoffs? I hope we're not that bad. But
No. It's more of like, kind of throwing shades of a
yeah,
tribute, shades of tribute. And then there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody derives off of something. It's just everything just leads to one another. But yeah, once like I'm sure record execs, A&R people probably say, "Hey, that's working. Let's get you to sound like this." And I'm sure that happens in the business. So when the band started, I mean, this started with Mike and Charles, and it kind of went from there from the Music Institute.
well, I mean,
Yeah. Sorry.
two separate. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No. That's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was saying there were actually two separate camps. Well, I guess ultimately everything revolves around Mike. Because when he was growing up, he knew a keyboard player named Steve Campitelli. And Steve moved out he went to Penn State, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So he moved out to Penn State. He's a keyboard player. And when he was there, he met John and Bill, who was our previous singer. And so they had a group together. Meanwhile, Mike and I met at Musicians Institute in Hollywood. And then ultimately, when Bill and John decided to move out to LA, Mike had already met them when he had gone to visit his friend, Steve. So it's kind of like the four of us, hey, you're a guitarist, bass player, drummer, there's a singer. Let's do some stuff. And there was an aborted cover band for a while that we learned some songs and never played any shows, but we all still kind of stayed in touch. We were all still buddies. And there was a barbecue at John's backyard one time, and the four of us happened to all be there at the same time. And my memory says it was me, but I can't be trusted. Somebody said, hey, we should try to do that band again, but this time let's do our own music. And that was 17 years ago. So we've been pounding away at it on and off. We took a break in the early 2010s for about 5-6 years. But yeah, came back together and we're back at it again.
Yeah, it really shows good result. And Bill Moore went off to go and teach, from what I understand, reading
Yep.
the notes here.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
guys, feel free to jump in and correct me if I got any of the history wrong.
Well, I just think to add, I think the barbecue at John's place, that was John's twins' first birthday party, I think, and I just had a kid as well, pretty much a newborn at that point. And so I think part of the motivation for John and me was like, well, we're relatively new dads and kind of dealing with the kids, and I guess we had understanding enough families to be able to kind of sneak off a day a week and sort of rehearse and hang out. So I think that was sort of the impetus. Was initially more of a kind of a social thing / musical thing, but the longer we did it, the more serious we got. And I think after about a year, we started to gig and gigging more and more regularly, and then culminating in 2009 with our debut album, the self-titled Final Gravity album.
Yeah, and let listeners know how did the name Final Gravity come about?
That's what I just wanted to interject. Like, wasn't part of why you initially started the band was beer, right?
Starts with
Like,
beer.
Is that why
One of the
every
covers
band
there.
is one?
you can take it from there, but I remember beer. Like, that's what you
Everything
guys
with our
do.
band starts and ends with beer.
I thought it was about fellowship of new fathers and
Final Gravity was formed. It was formed so that there was a good reason to drink beer, and you guys were like doing, like your beer reviews, and it was
Well,
kind of a big part of it. And you even had beer songs in that first album.
Melissa's right. Actually, when we really started the band, we didn't have delusions of grandeur. We weren't trying to make it. We were all friends. We were drinking buddies. We'd often go out to a bunch of craft beer places or beer festivals. And even when we started rehearsing, and even with Melissa, we'd spend 2 hours rehearsing in the garage and then spend 2 hours outside in the patio drinking beers and smoking cigars and hanging out. So we were friends. We weren't just trying to make it. I think we were creating music for the right reasons. We were good friends, a lot of the same musical influences. We enjoyed hanging out with each other. So all that kind of evolved. But yeah, I mean, we definitely, beer is definitely a little interweaving kind of a little theme. But Mike, why don't you be given the specific story on where Final Gravity comes from?
yeah, so given that kind of origin story, we of course had to have something referring to alcohol. So our initial name was going to be Amendment 21, which is the constitutional amendment that repealed prohibition. And so we're like, yeah, that's really cool. And after a few months, we're like, oh, there's another band that has albums out called Amendment 21. So back to the drawing board. Well, I got really into craft beer and home brewing, and to the point where I actually became a certified beer judge back in the 2000s, and kind of dragged Charles into the beer world as well. So we were both super into it. And so, as we were kind of like thinking of a new name, I was kind of running off some brewing terms, and the term final gravity kind of resonated with everyone. And final gravity, it's basically a measurement of the density of fermented beer or fermented alcohol relative to the density of water. There's also a term original gravity, which is before you ferment it. So the difference between original gravity and final gravity is basically will be an indicator of the alcohol content. So we like that. And then, with Bill being a scientist and, all of us really being kind of science geeks, we're like, well, there's some double meanings there too, including, think about a black hole. A black hole, if you go through it, would be the final gravity you ever encounter, which is kind of cool that the new album cover kind of alludes to that. And, we still like the beer connection, but I think we're trying to maybe de-emphasize that a little bit and lean in on maybe one of the alternate meanings.
Plus, it just sounds badass.
Yeah.
I like the sound of it. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting the fonts that you use, like on 4-pack. It's just, yeah, how does that get decided? Who's deciding like the kind of font placement that you have
That was Charles.
each
Yeah,
album?
Charles, I think you did a lot of the artwork for that. Yeah.
4-pack, I also did the artwork for the cover of that. But I did take the band name from the previous album, which my friend Eric, or I should say our friend Eric, he's a graphic designer. He did the packaging for our first album and also for Surviving Humanity. So the element that carried over from the first album to 4-pack, just the logo, was his design, but I did everything else on it.
By the way, beer drinking friends, just want to point that out.
Yeah, another beer friend. And that on the cover of 4-pack, that is Melissa. I made her go out to the beach and carry a little 4-pack of beer prop that I made and took a bunch of pictures, and then there's the cover.
Oh, it's beautiful. And carrying that 4-pack looks great. I like the jewelry on and all that, all the accoutrements there. That's very nice. Yeah. So on the new album, you got some really interesting tracks here. And one that really, really screams Geddy Lee to me is The Story of Forever. It really just harkens back to that and just has that really deep vibe to it. I really enjoy that one.
Melissa,
I love that one. What's that?
do you want to maybe tell them a little bit about that one?
Oh, well, I sort of said earlier that that song was meant to be an instrumental, Story of Forever, and it spoke to me. It just screamed at me, and coming up
You
with
screamed back at it.
I did, and coming up with the words was like so natural. It's like it just flowed like effortlessly, and it's about sort of that samsara, like the cycle of life. You just keep going through cycles and cycles, and hopefully you're evolving a little each time you go through the cycle, like like a spiral, or you get stuck, and you can't get out, right? And so it's that questioning, are you stuck in the story of forever, or are you evolving from the story of forever into your transcending? That's what it speaks to me. But the sounds of it also spoke to me, where it just felt like all those sounds were very natural. But Rich added a lot of elements to it beyond what we had done when we demoed it originally. And so he added these little kind of colors. So there's that little section where it's where it's between the choruses and the verses, and I think that sounds really cool. And even the bridge part at in the middle, like originally that was going to be more intense and higher, and he kind of like moved it into more of this like kind of like flowiness, and I think it was a beautiful balance of what our original idea was with then having produced.
Yeah, our producer, Rich Mauser, definitely had a great amount of input in taking the ideas we had and really help bring them to life and take the step farther. But we actually did something a little different for this record than we've ever done before. Most of the times in the past, we've recorded a song And then after you record it, you play it live and you're like, oh, and the more times you play it live, the more, I don't know what's the word, you sort to digest it or own it. And then you're like, oh, if we only got to record it, we got, I wish we could do a little bit more like this, or man, we could have this song could have become a better song to have played live if we just maybe gave this a little bit more forethought. But what we did this time is we actually took all the songs that we went to the recording studio to record, and before we went to go record them, we actually went and played them live. So we played a show over at the Whiskey A Go Go in Hollywood, and we actually played these songs basically as unreleased songs. And the coolest part for us was we kind of almost learned what worked or what didn't work. What went over with the crowd or what kind of fell a little bit flat. So we sort of developed the songs a whole bunch by the time we went to the studio. And then again, working with a producer like Rich Mauser, he, as Charles mentioned, I think he got us. And I think we had the songs so well developed. He's like, now let me help bring this up to the whole, the whole next level for you, and help me. He was able to sort of construct, a real song out of the idea. He really kind of brought it to life for us. So that was a pretty interesting process for us. First time we've ever done that.
Yeah, so you could really feel that from the audience, playing something totally not even recorded yet, but you're kind of like testing it out on them. And I think that's an interesting thing. I know a lot of artists do that, but I think that really kind of translates well. Like, okay, yeah, this works, that doesn't work. You get a producer together and you kind of figure it out from there. I think that's an interesting process.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I think we really trusted Rich a lot too. So, um, like we went into that whole recording session and working with a producer where it was like, okay, we've gotten it to here. Let's not get attached and just do with it as you wish. And so we gave him really like free range. Not that he like slaughtered the songs or anything, but I think just having that energy of like the openness and trust meant that he could fully unleash his creativity too. Because sometimes you can get a little bit too controlling or attached to something you've created, right?
I think
Yeah.
Story of Forever is the first one we started working on with him, right? That was
I
our
think
first
so.
pre-production session.
It was.
Yeah, Rich had a very interesting way of working. That's why he gets an arranger credit on the album, because he would listen to the demo and then just kind of sit at the control panel with some MIDI surfaces and essentially build the song up again from scratch using drum programming. And he would have Mike sit there and play some scratch guitar parts. And so it's like he listened to our demo and he goes, okay, so now let's start over completely and build it up again. And this way he had it all in Pro Tools and he could move it around, shuffle it and deal with it and change things and extend things, shorten things that I guess he wouldn't have been able to do if we had just set up and played live in the studio to record the demo. And it was a little off-putting, I'll say at first, because we're just kind of sitting in the room watching him work. And we're looking at each other going, do we have any input in this? But it turns out it was actually, that's his method. And then as soon as he gets a skeleton, or at least the framework, then it becomes more collaborative. And things like, what if you guys tried this? And we would say, oh, but we like this part. And, then we would build it up together. But the songs changed. It's like they didn't really change. They're still recognizable. But the songs changed either a small amount or, in the case of Far Away, a large amount. That song used to be twice as long and it had more parts in it. And he just kind of listened to it. He goes, these parts aren't speaking to me. Can we take them out? And, it's kind of like in editing, you have to kill your children, right? Sometimes your favorite bits don't work for the overall movie. So you wind up going, okay, I guess we can just put that back in the parts bin and maybe we'll use it again someday, maybe not. Sorry, I keep looking up because my screen's high.
Yeah, that is so true in the editing process too, whether it's audio or video. And you hear demos like many years later on anybody's projects. It's like, wow, it's like, oh, there was all this other stuff there and we just nixed it out for the initial release. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think it is kind of like more of a gut instinct. I know that as a storyteller myself. It's just like, some things just don't feel right. And so that's how you make those decisions.
And it's great to have an impartial outside sort of authority, I guess, telling you, let's lose that. If we decided to fight him, I think we would have had a different experience, but we thought about it, I think, in the moment, and it's just like, yeah, he's totally right. We're trying to jam too much into this tune, or there's just not enough of this part that's good. Maybe we should repeat that some. Just he really helped the songs take the form that they have, that you hear on the recording. If we had produced that ourselves, it would not have sounded like that, and I think it would not have been as good.
Yeah, you got to put that
Yeah,
trust in that producer.
I think with Far Away, that probably is arguably the one that changed the most, and that was actually pretty much on everything we put out. One of our favorite bands, particularly Charles and me, is the band King's X. In fact, when we met, Charles put up an ad at Musicians Institute saying guitarists wanted, and one of the influences included was King's X. I'm like, oh, I got to call this guy.
They were a new band.
So yeah, I think they're on their second album at that point, or anyway. So I'd kind of written a lot of what the former version of Far Away was called Velvet Wall Prison, and I wrote a lot of it, and it was very in the King's X realm, especially the chorus, which is one of the things we dropped. It was very kind of groovy King's X-y. And I think with Rich, that was one part that got dropped. We did kind of take a pre-chorus, it was almost like an interstitial part, and that became the new chorus. And then had a riff that had been kind of sitting around, and we kind of used that for that big bridge part where we're doing the kind of guitar solo and drum fills and all that. And again, as Charles said, at first it was a little off-putting because I'm like, wow, this has really changed a lot. But then kind of thinking about it, it's like, it still has that kind of King's X vibe to it, but it doesn't sound as much like we're just kind of aping King's X or whatever. So I think he helped us still kind of retain that character, but make it sound a little more like us, maybe a little less like, some of the bands were influencing us there.
Yeah. Wow. That's just, it really comes together. Another track that really gets to me is Automatic Pilot. And that just like how it starts off slow and then very lifts up and heavy and you feel that bass. It's just I like that crescendo. I'm sure that's something that you'd all kind of come to and we're like, wow, this could be really amazing. I like songs that just lift up like that.
Now, John, you want to talk about that one?
Well, I agree with you, Bob. I'm a big fan of the songs that kind of like lift up like that. I mean, I like a chorus that really kind of like pops and Rich was kind enough to kind of like listen to our idea how we wanted to give this kind of I don't know if I call it a poppy, but hooky kind of like chorus to it. And we definitely wanted to have a little bit more space during the verses that just kind of like vibed a little bit. Because sometimes, it's really hard to, I mean, we appreciate dynamics. And if everything's loud, nothing's loud, right? So we definitely wanted to have a little bit of space with the verses. And Rich, our producer, really introduced us to the idea of like hitting what was the word he used, Mike? Was it called accents, elements?
Events. Well, he talked about events and
Not
then
the word
scene
event. So
changes. That was
yeah, Rich Mouse would say, "Hey, look, I love all the space you have here, but let's stick this cool little like punch or this little accent here and make it interesting so it doesn't sit flat." So it was really fun, just the whole evolution of that, and lyrically, we were just trying to come up with something too. I mean, specifically the lyrics. I mean, I really appreciated that anyone listens to a song and they can interpret it to be whatever they want it to be. But I was almost trying to write some of those lyrics, which I wrote some of those lyrics a long time ago. It was about the plight of the inner city, and some lyrics about like I can see your screams scribbled on the walls, talking about like the graffiti and how cities used to be these bustling metropolises, and a lot of them like I don't know. I mean, so sad when you see cities like Detroit or other places that were these once dominating places that just sort of got forgotten about, and they kind of like fall apart and people keep looking for someone to save them from it. But I wanted that also to sound kind of like anybody can put a personal attachment to that too. So that's a little bit of the thought process, that if you kind of don't pay attention to things, if you don't stay on top of things and you just get lazy and complacent, you might just wake up one day and all of a sudden everything just kind of fell apart and you sort of didn't maintain it. So it's sort of that little reminder of hey, pay attention, notice, care, be in the moment. So that's a little bit of the thought process behind that.
Yeah, I like that question and answer kind of response in there too. It just feels like it's something unique and different that you hear in many tracks.
Well, I appreciate you said that. I mean, that's one of the things we actually do put a little bit of effort into, is trying to make all the songs we write different. And as we were mentioning earlier, we do a lot of collaborative writing. We often literally all four of us sit in the same room and like jam ideas. I mean, we just sit there and hash it out. And then once in a while, somebody brings a little riff and we just kind of work on that and jam it and see what happens. And Melissa sometimes will just like vamp, baby talk lyrics on top of it or make believe words just to kind of come up with a rhythm or a melody. And we kind of, let some things evolve. But we specific and when we're writing though, we will sometimes say, "Hey, let's not do that. We've already done that before. We've done that a few different times. Let's go a different area." So we actually do put a little bit of effort into making our songs. I mean, we want to have our own sound, but we don't want every song to sound the same. That's a pet peeve of mine. I hate getting a record by a band and I just heard 9 versions of the same song. So, so we really try to as much as I don't know if we have a sound, but I mean, I guess we are who we are, but we definitely want to show off as many flavors or as many colors as we can.
Yeah, and you all come to this band with other talents outside of music, which is very helpful, especially when it comes to marketing. And I know Melissa has been very big into that, working with Universal, doing those kind of things. So, I mean, that's definitely got to help as far as getting that word out there as to what you're doing.
Um, we're working on it. Um, but yeah, all of it helps uh, where we can do a lot of the work and create the foundations, and so that then when we are reaching out to external resources, we've already kind of got that game plan or like a foundation for people to expand upon. So, like employing Wendy, she's someone that's been helping us to promote this album, and it helps that we can put together like a solid EPK where it's you're not they're not sort of like scrambling to find out all the information about you, but because I know how to do that and we know how to do all these different steps, and Charles can create all the graphics and things like that that are needed, and all of these things are really important if you want to be able to be in the music business,
Right.
not just the music creation, right?
Yeah, it's beyond just simply creating it. You got to get that
You
word out and
gotta,
know how to work all that.
that's right, that's right.
Yeah, that's very, very, very big. And then that translates into where you make the money's on the road. So
Yeah.
how are your plans shaping up for future touring?
Well, we've been talking a little bit. One of the things we have never really done, we've always played more. Final Gravity has always played a little bit more local. We've always played in the LA area, and I think this is we sort of got a little inspired from this little EP package that we thought, it'd really be kind of cool that we're finally talking about the idea of maybe going on the road for a little bit and doing some like little week-long stints, maybe opening up for a band of like a similar genre and kind of like partnering up a little bit. So I mean, up till now, we've done so many shows that are like one-offs. And here in Los Angeles, there are great venues to play. We've played the Viper Room and we played the Whiskey A Go Go and we played this great new venue out in Lancaster called Transplants Brewing, big stage, great place. But everything we've done up till now has definitely been the LA market. And I think this is the first time we've really kind of seriously considered the idea of disappearing for a little bit and trying to do some extended shows. And maybe, again, we'd love the idea to maybe partner up with somebody else that has a similar kind of game plan that we do and maybe like be an opening band for them. So I guess we're in the baby steps of that. So we'll see where that evolves.
Yeah, hopefully we could see that and you get outside of LA and expand your horizons. So yeah, hopefully for the future it can really do that. It's nice to be on the socials and people can discover you that way as well. But nothing like seeing you live
And
and
we enjoy playing live. I mean, and
yeah.
that's fun for us. I mean, I think that's a comfortable place for us. And what's really fun too, or one of the things I've been personally proud about, um, we've often played some shows as an opening band where the majority of the crowd possibly didn't know us, right? Especially in LA, sometimes you're playing a night where there's 4 or 5 bands on the bill. And they're often showing up for the headliner or they're showing up for their friends, and it's really fun when we get to win people over. I think Melissa's got a great stage presence. I think she really feels comfortable. I mean, there's some bands that just go up on stage and perform, but I think we really try to connect with the crowd, and that's important to us. And we're excited about our music, and we're trying to expose it to people. And it's so exciting when the fans resonate to it, because if you look up and you see them kind of responding to it, you almost see the surprise look or people, nodding their head. That gets you inspired. Then when you're inspired, you start playing even better, and that's that whole exciting energy you share, which you can only get in a live environment. So it's fun to record. It's fun to listen to it. It's great that there's YouTube and all these other social media platforms, but there's still nothing like a live rock show.
Yeah. And having
We
somebody like Melissa
actually,
could really help.
oh, thanks. Um, but we actually love performing. Like performing
Yeah.
is one of our specialties. I know that there's some bands where they're like, oh God, performing, or they get nervous, or no, that's not really our deal. Our deal is like performing's fun. It's fantastic. And the more we can do it, the better. So um, I think that's a good thing. That's all.
And you also have that TV presence too. You have a little bit of a background with that as well. So I'm sure that that helps, not just being photogenic, but videogenic as well, which translates into the audience really connecting. I think that really helps
I'm definitely comfortable on stage. I'm probably more comfortable on stage than in like
in real
normal
life.
human interaction, quite honestly. Um, but yeah, I did TV hosting. But even before then, there's just something about once you're on that stage, it's a different world, right? You tap
Yeah,
into another world, and nothing else matters. Like your problems are gone, your
right.
whatever whatever. It does nothing exists except in this moment. It's one of the greatest ways to be present and in the now, I think. And that's what a lot of us strive to do, like through like meditation and all these things. And for me, like the greatest meditation is to just sing and perform live.
Yeah, it's so true. Bruce Springsteen said that, I wish I was that guy up on stage all the time. I was like, it's funny how you look at that.
I think
Yeah,
I relate to that. For sure.
and then, coming off stage, and that's where it translates into that too. It's like, yeah, how do you come down off of that? It's like, all these people had their attention on me for
Well,
so
that's
long.
actually easy for us because most of the venues we play at have a bar and there's plenty of
There
beer
you
over
go.
the bar. So
Yeah, I was gonna say beer.
we're fine off stage too.
There's the common denominator, beer.
Have you noticed?
Fair.
And all points lead back to that, from songwriting all the way to the final mix and touring. It's
We just call it liquid inspiration.
That's what
exactly.
Sean says.
Yeah, but getting back to that closing track, that's the parting shot, right? Especially what's going on with LA now. It's just like, about survival and what we're doing to planet Earth. And they're going to be talking about this for centuries, I'm sure, as to what happened. And of course, the blame game and the finger pointing always goes on there. But it's kind of interesting how that's all come about, how you have that kind of a track and it's coinciding with everything happening now.
Yeah, and it's scary because I mean, you look at like recent hurricanes, there've been probably three or four like just really incredibly devastating ones over the past few years. There's the fires here, Paradise, California, other areas, and I feel like with these recent disasters over the past 5 years in particular, you look at the aftermath and it looks like a nuclear weapon went off. It's like these aren't like old school fires, old school hurricanes, which are incredibly destructive. These are like totally destructive. And they're getting more frequent, they're getting worse. And these are things we've been getting warned about for a while. Like if we don't change our ways, this will happen. And now it is happening. And I think, we're a long way from literally having to leave the planet. But, I think collectively humanity kind of needs to get its act together, or we could actually get there at some point.
Well,
Yeah.
again, Mike had actually written this song a whole bunch of years ago, and we'd never sort of incorporated it into our set, or we'd never recorded it before, but it always resonated with me. And the cool thing too, I mean, I remember a long time too, when I was studying music, they're saying, hey, if you want to get your message across all the time, you can't just scream it. And so what was kind of neat was, Final Gravity had never done a ballad before. I mean, this was almost a very acoustic guitar based kind of song. And I think there is a great message in there to be heard. So I think that was fun for us to do an acoustic kind of song, give a chance for that storytelling to come through. Again, Melissa did a great job interpreting, the message and the vocals that, that the listener can really get to it. And it was fun for Charles and Mike and myself to kind of do an acoustic thing. And as we were mentioning earlier, we did most of this record with the producer, Rich Mauser, but there's one song, this was even before we specifically set out to do an EP. We actually were just sort of recording a single. And we reached out to a great engineer named Chris Henry, who's worked with the likes of U2, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Adele, some great people. And we reached out to Chris and said, hey, you know what? We got this little project that we want to do the song, but here's what we want to do. We want to go to the studio and do the whole song in one day. He's like, well, that's not the way you do songs. I'm like, yeah, but we actually tracked it live. So we sat in the same room with Mike playing guitar, Charles playing bass, me playing drums, and Melissa singing, all four of us, four human beings in the room playing the song live together. Now we did go and do some overdubs. We layered guitars. We, obviously worked on some new vocals and all these other harmonies. So the whole song wasn't completed, but we actually performed the bass tracks with all of us performing live. And again, I just think that so often that art form gets lost nowadays. And again, we did do a couple of overdubs after that one single day, but we did power through one long day and recorded all of, well, probably 90% of that song all got recorded in one day. And it was just fun to not just, because sometimes projects get belabored. People spend forever just tweaking things to death, and sometimes it sucks the life out of stuff. So we thought it'd be just so again, just in that effort for us to do something a little bit different for that one particular track, we had a specific game plan on how we did that. And again, we did reach out to Rich Mauser to mix that song. And as Mike and Charles were mentioning earlier, that's kind of how we met Rich Mauser when he mixed that song Planet Earth. And so it's fun. It's funny that that's the last track on our EP, but that's the first song that spawns the whole little project.
Yeah. And a great project it is. It's just it really comes together well. Where can we find all of this material? You all have your own website and wherever you can get your music, I suppose, and digital. And are you also on vinyl as well?
Not yet.
We've talked about that. That'd be fun. We've never done that, but I think we should, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The best place to get the music, though, is at Bandcamp, because if you buy it from them, then we get most of the money, as opposed to if you stream it on Spotify or Amazon or something, we get like a fraction of a cent for every play. So, if somebody likes what they hear, go to Bandcamp, buy the download. It's very reasonable. It's $1 a song, so it's $6 for the EP. And, then you own it.
Yeah.
You can get to the bank.
Or physical media.
Through
Oh, yeah.
through Final Gravity.
We also have physical media available. You can't see that.
Yeah. I got mine.
We have ours.
No,
Where's yours?
So you can go to finalgravitytheband.com. That'll take you to the Bandcamp.
Yeah, that's where Bandcamp is
Just so
definitely.
it's like kind of an easy thing to remember, right?
This would translate really nice to vinyl with all of the artwork and all of that. And thank you for those inside photos and everything. And then the photo of being in the studio there, which is just hopefully a new studio will be built soon.
Hopefully,
Melissa.
Rich will rise from this. There's, like I said, the GoFundMe is already made. I want to. The last time I looked was almost 50,000 people had donated to him to help rebuild his studio. It's going to take a lot more than that, but it's a good place to start.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it's great. Well, thank you all so much for joining me today. And
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
we'll get the word out there and go to Bandcamp. Please buy this brand new project and just excellent tunes here. It really is. It's really, really well done. And congratulations on that. It's just something to listen to. Definitely.
Awesome. Thank you.
We're very proud of it. I hope more fans will find us. So fingers crossed. I want to share the music.
All 4 of our releases are there on the Bandcamp page.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you all stopping by and best of wishes in the future for everything.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. And wherever you can give to help the people of Southern California who have been dealing with these awful wildfires, they are raging as I speak right now. By the time I get this out, I don't know if they will be out or not. Hope those Santa Ana winds dissipate, go away forever. It would be really nice. But what a beautiful place. I love Southern California. Got family out there. Hi, family. I think they're all okay. Haven't really heard from anybody, but I think they're okay. They're around it. They probably smell it, I'm sure. It's just an insane tragedy out there. And I just really, really hope and pray for the best for everybody out there in Southern California, the Los Angeles area, and everybody else who I know there. I know it's been a very, very hard time. So I hope by the next episode that becomes a memory and people heal quickly from that awful tragedy. Rick Mauser is the producer of this project, Stormchaser, and he lost everything, including that studio. They started that GoFundMe. And if you'd like to help, his name is Rich Mauser, Mouser. And he's done some incredible work. And this is an amazing album that they put out there. Actually, it's more like an EP. Final Gravity, Stormchaser. Get it wherever you get music. If you can, go to Bandcamp and buy those songs. They are wonderful. And until next time, have a good one and hope for the best.